Hi there, everybody. I thought I would do a little review. Might be quite a long review, actually. But of this Retekess V115P radio, MP3 player, and recorder. Because I have been a long time user of these little radios. I have. The reason I bought it is because I have a Retekess V115, and it's getting a bit long in the tooth. These radios, they just tend to wear out. The charging socket on this one is getting a bit unreliable. The battery is not holding an amazing charge like it used to. And it's just getting a bit temperamental in terms of what I use it for, which is primarily as an MP3 player when I am working in the garden or down in my shed workshop. The outstanding feature about these little radios is their sound quality. They have a bass reflex port on the back, which renders music, if you record nice music onto an MP3, in MP3 format on a TF card or compact flash card, or a little card, it just sounds great. It isn't the most kicking bass in the universe. It isn't stereo, but it just is just so agreeable. And I like to fill up my compact flash card with podcasts, and often about music. And I just take this with me as I potter about the garden, pruning my roses, or if I'm down the shed doing the strange things I do down my shed, like artwork and tweaking my guitars and other crazy projects. Like I say, on Sunday, this one was a bit like, I'm getting a bit fed up. And I was like, well, it's time to get another one. And I spotted that this is seemingly the latest version, and I thought I would compare the two. But just out of interest, these have been around for a while. So this is the third one that I have had. Prior to that, I had a Kaimida SRW710S, which is exactly the same. In fact, you can see it is exactly the same. And all this cruddy muck, is from it being essentially a gardening radio. It gets shoved in and out of my pocket, hung up on things. It's been dropped loads and loads of times. And like I say, this one is getting a bit unhappy. Ooh, and in fact, that's a reminder. That battery is looking a bit unhappy. And if anybody knows about these kind of batteries, you don't want those. So we'll make sure that doesn't do anything anymore. So there's the Kaimida. But before that, there was the Audio Max. Get my glasses on. SRW810, and this is the original one. You'd almost think it's identical, but it's not quite. You can see some of the controls are not the same. This is the one I fell in love with, even though I think the menu is in Chinese. It's long stopped working. And this is where I just, really dug the idea of a little thing that would play music for me. Now, a lot of you might be happy with your phone doing that. Back when I got this, I didn't have a phone that could play MP3 files. I had some old Nokia 1.5. But I also do play guitar, and it has the ability, all of them do, to record to the compact flash card through a microphone. It isn't the greatest quality in the world. In fact, it reminds me of recording on a cassette boombox, if you can remember what that was like. So got the old compressor on it for like automatic level control, and you hear all sorts of room tone and everything like that. It's not a stereo hi-fi recording experience at all. But if, like me, you like to plunk about on guitar and think up all sorts of strange song ideas, then it's fantastic, because you just stick that on, shove it on the table, and twang away, and then you have a nice recording of your latest song idea. You can, of course, take the compact flash card out and put it in your computer, and you can connect it as well through the cable. And when you connect these to some operating systems, they become an external speaker as well, which again, they have this very agreeable mono but hi-fi sound. And I've done tons of things with these, even recording projects like you record some of yourself playing, say put a drum loop on here, and you can put it at the bottom of a dustbin and shove a mic in and get a really interesting clangy metallic reverb. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject of what this is all about, which is actually a review of the new one. So the first things first, you can see it's a bit bigger. It's certainly at least 1 centimetre wider. It is about 2 millimeters deeper. And it is maybe 2 millimeters higher. On its own, you think this is a small radio. But you pick up this one and it's like, this is a small radio. This is just a little bit bigger. It's not the end of the world. But if you were very comfortable with it, if you'd already had one of these and you just knew what it did and what pockets of your jackets and things it fitted in, you might be like, this is a bit bigger. You will have spotted this. This is a torch. Why do you need a torch on a radio? Well, I will tell you. When you've been out in the garden all day long, particularly in the spring or the autumn and the night is drawing in, you stay out as long as possible to do all your gardening, and then you need to put all the tools away and you're listening still to your interesting podcast. And you lock everything up and you want to come up the garden path in the dark. Well, there you've got a torch. And I can imagine I like to go camping from time to time, and these are great camping musical accessories. And again, having a torch built into the thing that you're actually paying attention to and listening to music on is great. Again, you've got a torch on your phone, I know, but this is a good old beam, I can tell you that. It's not doesn't replace having a torch, but it is handy to have it. But it was freaking out at first, like, what is that big off-on thing? Well, that's the torch. Inside, there's a battery. Interestingly, not the common, I can't remember what the number it is now, but 1836 or whatever it is, rechargeable cell, but it's one in there. It's not the same as the V115. I can't be bothered to look into what it is. Anyway, and you always have these plastic, you think, what is this key? Well, it fits in there and it enables it to stand up. It wears out in the end. This one was never very happy doing that. And it's doing it now, but it will eventually fall off. It's just a thing. I don't really know what to think about that. Let's move that out of the way. It's getting rather distracting. So those are the sort of obvious physical differences. I will say as well, in the hand, this one feels cheaper than this one. Now, these are not expensive radios at all. You shouldn't be paying more than about £20 delivery with these from the well-known online retailers. That's the number one attraction of them, beyond what they can do. Excuse me. But even so, the Retekess / Kymedia, exactly the same thing. You could get other brand ones, it always felt just the way it looked, with a bit of orange and black and some of the design. It always felt great. There's something in this, you probably won't see it on the video. The quality of the printing, the quality of the plastics, it just feels Well, it doesn't feel as good. That isn't the end of the world, but it is nevertheless a noticeable difference. Now, the big difference between this, and perhaps the reason for the difference in size, apart from the torch, is that this has Bluetooth. That might be a feature. I'm not going to try it on this phone because I'm recording, so I'm not going to connect that Bluetooth to that. But I suspect if you're in the least bit techie, you've probably already got a Bluetooth speaker that you like. For example, I'm not actually going to be able to fit it in the screen. No, I'm not, am I? But if I want to play music off my phone or whatever, stream it, I like this Pifco. Absolute classic pound shop type speaker. I think I paid about 10-15 quid from Home Bargains for that one. And it does the job of playing things, streaming stuff off YouTube. Quite nice, loud sound for that. So I'm sure the Bluetooth is just great, but it's not why I bought it. I bought it as a replacement for this. And this is where it's a little bit disappointing. So switch it on. And we're going to listen to it as a radio, first of all. Now this, there we got 693, which in the UK is Radio 5, the sports station. There are 2 frequencies for Radio 5, and this is on medium wave, or AM. Now, it is directional AM, so you'll see, as I turn this round, the signal comes in clearer than if it's there. But that's not a great listening experience. I don't know.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. The voice of the FIFA World Cup 2026.
There's this overwhelming static hiss over the top.
Near a UK registered yacht in the channel this morning.
Now these are marketed as a radio. I've never taken them tremendously seriously as a radio, certainly not the shortwave section. But I was like, that isn't very good. And it does say goodbye when you switch it off. But if I switch on the little Retekess, which should be pre-tuned to 693.
Do enough for consumers or the environment. It brings Thames Water closer to a form of nationalisation.
It's so much nicer. All of that hiss has gone.
12 tons of cannabis at Southampton.
If I liked sport, I could have that on down the shed, listening to sports news. Be really, really happy with it.
Mike McCarthy's back with the sport.
Evening. Well, Tino Livramento's World Cup had been in doubt, given he missed the last 5 weeks of the season with an injury, and today it's been confirmed.
That is just fab.
The problem picked up at the weekend has ruled the Newcastle man out.
But
Chelsea's Trevor Chalobah,
just to compare both of them, this is where it's getting beyond a bit of a review of just the Retekess, but I have to do this. It's bringing a real radio. And when I say a real radio, I mean this little Sony, which I happen to get in Japan, actually. And we'll tune that in.
United boss Ruben Amorim has been appointed as AC Milan's new head coach. She's got some rebuilding to do there. AC
To 693.
In Serie A last season, just outside of the Champions League spots. Let's head to Queen's
that
ex-Britain Norrie, third on court this afternoon.
That doesn't have the bass response that these two have. But you'll see.
Once the decks are cleared for him to take to the court, Mike, he'll be up against the Spanish fourth seed, Alejandro Davidovich.
He just picks it up wherever it is. And although I don't have the keypad precision,
The number 1 seed, Alex de Minaur, a week on from his
I've just got the wheel.
Katie Bolter's run to the semi-finals here at Queen's.
I can just nudge that backwards and forwards till I find a sweet spot. And
so that was
over there in the Radio 5 studio, they're expecting you to listen to it on a little speaker like that. The signal is all designed to come through stridently and clear. So just for the avoidance of any doubt, I mean, I'm not going to take the back off this, but this is a real analog radio. These two are computers that are using their computers to hear the analog signal. I know the signal on medium wave or AM. These days, coming out of the actual transmitter has, of course, gone through loads and loads of digital signal processing, and the studios are all digital and all of that. We're no longer listening to a human vibrating a microphone that is amplified by valves and is then turned into radio waves that are vibrate the speaker down here. But it is nevertheless an analog signal, and in here there's no computers. There's just coils and resistors and capacitors, and it's wonderful. And I will show you why. Well, first of all, I'll demonstrate why these are computers. So if we put on the Retekess on 693, here we go.
76 years.
Sounds good.
Astonishing. Brexit, if anyone gave you that. John Hunt, thank you very
and
much.
I put on the
in Formula One as
Sony.
Well. The arguments over the outcome of the Monaco Grand Prix, well, they are
you probably can't even tell
Pierre Gasly's time penalties
which is
in the
which.
pit lane were rescinded.
Let me switch on the Retekess.
From 7th. It turned out speeds were being miscalculated by the officials, but now McLaren have lodged an appeal.
Can you hear the echo? So we have to conclude that the little computer in the Retekess is taking 60 milliseconds, I don't know, some amount of milliseconds longer to decode the whole thing and turn it into sound, compared to this or this. Interesting little observation, but just also to because I know a lot of people are interested in getting into radio as a hobby. And why wouldn't you want to get a little cheap radio like this? Well, because you could get a cheap radio like this. Admittedly, I did get this from Japan. Actually went to Japan. But you can still find things like this. And you don't have to go into the online shopping things. If you actually go into a shop that still sells radios, in the UK we have a couple, usually in the retail parks, that do that. You will probably find something like this. And you want to get it. Now, when I turn this little wheel, what I'm actually doing is changing the amount of air that is in between two sets of charged metal. Real radio people will know what I'm talking about, a variable capacitor. It goes along lots of bits of string that moves the dial and things like that. But you're literally
it's going east,
tweaking
away from Switch Island at junction 1 to junction
it in the
3
most
for Bickerstone.
brilliant analog way. You can
Berkshire.
get radios that have got a dial to turn it, to change the frequency. But on the computer radios, all they're doing is just notching up another digital command to the computer to say, go up and down the frequency a bit. Anyway,
Towards the M11 there, it's
like I told you, in the UK we've got 693 and we've got 909 for Radio 5. So there's 693 because we're right at the very end of 6 and 7. And if I whiz up the dial, there's 909. Because we're now getting near 10. And that's a bit further away from me, and it's not the best signal. It's not bad, but it doesn't sound quite as good as 693 where I am. Now, if I whiz back a little bit, a lot of buzzing and stuff. It's good. AM's not what it used to be, but if we go back,
shortly, but first, let's
we're
get
there.
an
Hang
update
on, let me turn it
the
round.
Ministry of Defence investigating.
There we go. we got one of the Asian stations in the UK playing some really great sounding music. I don't really know what the frequency is there, but it's somewhere between 8 and 909. If I get on the old Retekess, we'll put in 800, and then that won't work. I'm going to pause. Okay, apologies for that. So I found it. It's on 837, and on the Retekess, I can get it a little bit. Let's see if it's not bad. On the V115P, really struggling. There it is on 837, and it just doesn't want to do it. So I have to, on that evidence alone, I can't really recommend it for AM signals at all. V115 is still okay in that regard. Little old Sony. Wow. Of course, the Sony can't play MP3 files. And this is where you go when you want to combine all of your things into one unit. If you did want to combine all the things into one unit, that's the best mix of the two, without a doubt. But just to remind you again, here we go. 837. That is sounding fabulous. So if you bought one of these and you were tuning up and down the band, you might well think AM is dead, or medium wave. It is not. There's loads. Especially late at night when the sun has gone down, and if you can get yourself a box loop antennas as well, getting into the whole subject of DXing, which wasn't really the point of this, but just trust me, one of those is great. And they're still out there. Obviously, there are really, really good little digital radios. Don't mean ones that receive DAB. I mean things like the Sony SW7600 and XH Data and all those kind of ones. But if you're in this price bracket and you can find a genuine analog radio with the old, where you just know it's analog and it's not a computer, get one. If anybody's interested in this is a Sony ICF-P21, and it's fab. It goes all the way down to 76 megahertz on FM because it's Japanese radio. You can't hear anything down there in the UK anyway. Anyway, back over to this, because the the other reason I wanted to review it was that I bought it to play my MP3 files on, but it's really disappointing in that regard as well. And I will be brief because I've been rabbiting on for ages. These ones, it's nothing like having a phone where you've got proper file management and stuff like that. The file management, you have to be a bit forgiving on them. For example, when you're transferring files off your computer, it only ever pays attention to the latest thing. It will not the most recent files that you copied onto the card. There's no way to sort the files by date or name or anything like that. It just plays what it thinks is the most recent thing. the great thing about this was you could jump through the, I don't have an MP3 card in there, but you had some reasonable file management stuff once you knew what you were doing. If you held down the sorry if you heard that, it's my neighbours moving their wheelie bin. If you held down the play button, it would jump into the file management and you'd be in the folder that your file was in. On the Retekess, I'm actually going to check what what directory I've got on there. Hang on. Okay, Groover's back again. Right, so here's an annoyance already off the out of the starting gate. You switch it on, and if you're on the radio, you can change your dial to FM or one of the shortwave bands. It's even got weather band on, but I don't think we use that in the UK. But there isn't a button for music. Now, it used to be on the original, you press the mode key and it would switch it over to listening to music mode. But all it does on the, and you had to long press it to lock the screen. Where this one, you short press it and it locks the screen, full stop. If you short press it, it's still locked. You have to long press it to unlock the screen. The only way to get to playing music is to press this menu button, which then brings you into this menu and you can choose music. I'm a radio nerd, so on my...
Hello there, welcome back. This is Thomas Vance in front of...
On my file, I'm just going to pause that for a second. I have got recordings of old radio stations. This is some Radio Luxembourg, which isn't even on the air anymore. Anyway, I'm going up and down. You probably can see that. I'm changing the volume.
Excellent.
I can start and pause my file. That's kind of standard. And I can jump forward to another file and jump back to the previous file. You can absolutely forget about fast forward and rewind, as it were. It goes about like 1.5 times faster. It is not the strong point. Normally, on that baby, if I wanted to find another file, like jump through into another folder, I could hold down that and it would go into the file management. What it does here, it goes into the really basic menu to do with playing music, which is repeat mode, the EQ setting, and best of all, the exit. If you press the menu button, which has said meno there, but it's menu.
Hello there, welcome back. This is Thomas.
Nothing happens at all. You have to press rec file to get into the file management system, and then it always goes to the root of the card. It should go to the root of the folder that the files are in, but it does not. And I have noticed, in particular, so that was in a folder called Oldies, that it is ignoring a bunch of things. So that was in a folder called Luxy. And if I select the Luxy folder and click enter to go into it, it just ignores it and goes back to that file. I've tried and tried, and it is not interested. There's something to do with the file system that's on my card. Perhaps if I deleted it all and started again, maybe it'll be interesting. I don't know. But that isn't working out for me, and that's a real drag. It will, you can obviously dial in any number, but you've got to know what number your file is. So I've got 302 files on here. I do not have a list of what they are by number. And that's just a real drag. Creators of the Retekess, you need to do a firmware update and get better file management. Get it back to the V115. That worked. Now, it does record. If I press record, it's going to start recording. You're going to hear me in a minute saying this, coming back. because there's a little microphone there. But I already can tell you, having listened to my own dulcet tones, it doesn't sound as good as this. And the Audio Max was absolutely the best of all of them. But anyway, we can stop recording and it will save the file. But then it goes back to the MP3 that you were listening to, and you have to go into rec file, and you have to go and find JL rec, and then you can go into there, and I can play you me talking 35 seconds ago. You're going to hear me in a minute saying this, coming back, because there's a little microphone there. But and I already can. That is noisy, and it's not very loud, and I'm not very impressed. There are some recording settings. They didn't seem to make any difference to what I was recording. If you're on the radio listening to the not very good AM reception, you can press record and it will record that as well. In fact, let's have a go at that. So if we go on AM, well, it doesn't do anything. It wants, in fact, to play track 7, which is also annoying. So I'm going to have to press menu. And I don't want to go in that one. I have to go to exit. Then I can finally find the radio section. And now I'm back on. So this is just rubbish. There we are. Back listening to the station that isn't there. But if we go 693.
There's 2020.
There's 5 live.
Where you should actually.
And if I press record,
actually to put your red wine in the fridge for 20 minutes before you serve.
It's making a recording of that. Now let's listen to the recording of that. I've not done this before. So
the 2020 rule.
That should stop it.
I do. We think about
rec file. Doesn't do anything at all if you're in the radio mode, so I guess I've got to press menu and then go back into me music. This is not very intuitive. Then I've got to press rec file, go all the way back to the root again. Then I've got to go JL. Or is it in there? I don't know. Or is it just me talking? Let's see what that is.
Red wine in the
oh, there it is.
20 minutes before you serve it.
There's a fly flying about, and it's just recorded all that hiss and static. So
white wine's too cold, which robs them.
I am not overjoyed with that, I'm afraid. Now, you can still get a V115. I'm not sure for how longer, but you'll find them if you search on major online retailers. I think that's a much better radio than this one. Maybe somebody's got one of these and it's absolutely brilliant, but it doesn't have a torch. But anyway, but what I did get is one of these. The Prunus J168. Now let's compare that. It is big and bulky. Ooh. Compared to the original Retekess. It's really big. It's bigger than the Retekess, in fact. Again, it was about 20 quid, but it's ever so nicely made. So I say this, I'm in a band, Queen Eleanor's Cross, and we use an older Prunus MP3 player, just like this, the J168, for playing our backing tracks. So if I switch this on, it's tuned to the radio because I was trying to demonstrate its radio reception. If I press mode,
SD card mode,
it does what it should do, which is changes mode, and there's a backing track for our song Chase Mirages. Anyway, you don't want to listen to that anymore. Now the interesting thing, let's go back to radio.
Bluetooth mode.
We don't want Bluetooth mirrored.
Line in mode.
We don't want line in mode.
SD card mode.
We don't want SD card mode. I guess we have to press AM. There we go, to get back to AM. This does have a little dial on the side, and you might think, oh, it's analog, but it's not. It just shoves it up 9 kilohertz till you get to 909. It's just a computer control, and
I mean, there's mad things in the world than that, isn't there? But okay. Sophia, thank you very much indeed.
I'd say it's on a par with the Retekess V115. It's got one less feature in that although it can play files from a TF card, it can't record. There's no record button, and it makes me so sad because the original Prunus J168, whichever one it was, 401, could record, and we used to have two, and so we could play the backing tracks through them and then switch the other one on and record the rehearsal. I just loved it, but fortunately Singer broke the other one and we've never been able to get a replacement, so I was really happy to get this. Now, why didn't I get that to play the backing tracks on? Well, there's a tiny delay when you switch between tracks playing MP3s off a TF card, CF card on these. You don't notice it when it is playing
SD card mode.
podcasts, but when you're on stage, our songs all start with a little bit of cymbal ticking, a counting. That one doesn't, though. Here we go. In fact, that one doesn't. This one does. It will go tick, tick, tick. If I put that in there and played that, well, let me try and prove it. So I'll switch it off. Woo! It's flung across the room, but I've managed to get it. Who could believe all those songs on a thing the size of a cornflake? In it goes, and I switch that on. I switch mode. There we go. So we go over to that song. It just missed the start of that cymbal. It'll be even better on Perfect Freak. It just went, you can get half a millisecond missing. But when you're on stage in the groovy club and all your fans are going wild and you're thinking the next song's got to start, I need to hear that little tick. I know there's got to be 8 before I start, because on number 9 I start playing the guitar or whatever. That's no good. You just cannot train your ear to hear 7.5 instead of 8. I think somebody might understand what I'm talking about. I don't think I'm being very convincing. Anyway, so the Prunus wins in that regard. This has been an incredibly long ramble that probably hasn't convinced anybody of anything at all, other than actually analog radios are still best when you haven't got a lot of money. But yes, ultimately disappointed in the Retekess V115P. Prefer the original V115 in all sorts of ways. Nicer build, better size, better interface, better radio reception. Not bothered about Bluetooth. Recording isn't as good either. I'm really, really sorry. I don't like being the voice of doom. But I also don't like being disappointed, and I wouldn't want anybody to be overly disappointed. So if you are thinking, do I get one of them or do I get one of them? There are better Bluetooth speakers out there, but that for sort of 20 quid is a much more fun item to have. But if you really want to listen to AM radio, get one of them. And you could also connect the earphones out of there to the line in there and record it on there if you really want to. But since you can listen to everything on 5 Live, on iPlayer, on Catch Up, you don't really need to do that. The beauty really of listening to the radio is listening to the radio live. Down the shed late at night, tuning through the wave bands. some exotic stuff wafting over from the continent, what's left of it, but nevertheless you can hear stuff. There's a bit of North Africa down there. There are little community stations and things like that. And down in where I am, in the South Midlands of England, you can sometimes hear Scotland. You can sometimes hear Wales, the BBC programmes. All these things just sound really nice. And there is life yet still on medium wave. Anyway, rambling on, etc. Farewell. But buyer beware. Goodbye. I should point out, by the way, you might have spotted that this is on my bed. Why am I filming a video on my bed? Well, because I wanted to get this switched on so I could continue listening to my podcasts whilst I put away my laundry, which is on my bed. But I found it so difficult to use. I thought, I need to film this here and now and make a video for the consumers of the world to consider whether this is as good as that. Sorry, cough. Kicked up some dust. So that's why we're in this great background of my bed. I am now going to sort out my washing. Goodbye.